Ready to go. Let's go, man. Let's get this game started, bro.
Get the game started. Blow the whistle. Show the world. Let's go tonight.
What is up, everybody? Welcome into another episode of The Cut. I am your host, Christian Williams, and I am here with Randy Hall. Randy, how are you tonight, dude?
Doing good, man. Our keeper draft that we had right before this didn't take anywhere near as long as I thought it would. So we actually got a nice little break in between. Got to go grab a snack from my early dinner.
Yeah, it was good. I also grabbed a snack, and I am ready to rock. I did have to make some of these graphics for this episode, which will be a very fun one. We are going to talk through NFL news and notes, so preseason week 2, some of the injury stuff, and then also we're going to be going over our 2021 sleepers, which if you guys watch the show, you probably could guess some of these guys that we're going to talk about, but there are a few surprises. So very excited to just dive right into that because as you can see, plugs last thing. So if you stick around, you'll get to hear us talk about that. But normally I talk about it up front. We're not doing that today. We are going to dive right into the NFL news and notes. And so I want to start with Trey Lance because it was pretty divisive last night. He was kind of a tale of two halves for Trey Lance. He started off a little rocky. He had some bad throws. And then he progressively got better. He had a nice little 2-minute drill. My observation is that this dude, I don't know why it's gone because it was there for him in college, but he is just throwing fastball after fastball. Do you think that that's just a product of nerves right now? Do you think that he's just trying to kind of prove himself out there? Randy, what's your takeaway from Trey Lance?
Yeah, I think he's trying to do slightly too much. And also, same thing with Jamar Chase having some struggles early on in the gate. Another guy that hasn't played in 2 years now. So he's getting back to confidence, I think, in his touch. I think that's what we're getting at. And if you throw the ball hard, the odds of defender catching it, stepping in front and catching it is lower than a touch pass. So
that's true, except we've seen it now. Balls going off receivers' hands and falling right into defensive backs' hands, and it resulted in an interception last night. And a lot of people said, well, that wasn't his fault. Receiver has to come down with it. I think that was his fault. So we'll see how it plays out from there. Next item on the docket here, Myles Gaskin is definitely losing touches to Malcolm Brown at a rate that doesn't make a ton of sense to me. So what are your thoughts on that split right now?
So again, it's the preseason. A lot of team starters aren't playing at all. So I think there's some worry, but they were always going to kind of use a committee. And I think there was a lot of injuries last year that led to Gaskin probably getting overly over touches than he would have in a normal situation. They brought in Malcolm Brown. They want to use Malcolm Brown as a rotational back. I think he does have some role down the year. I have that said that way. Gaskin still ends up being good.
Yeah. No,
I possibly not a value in drafts right now, but still relevant in fantasy for sure.
Yeah. I think the problem is people were drafting him as if he was a workhorse, and he was never going to be that. I mean, when they drafted Dokes, I even said, like, this dude is going to get snaps. And I still think that's the case. I think right now the coaching staff trusts Malcolm Brown, but at some point you're going to look at Malcolm Brown and say, we need some more explosion out of you, man. And Dokes will have that, I think. So it's just an interesting split. I think a lot of people, Savon Ahmed is vying for some snaps too. I mean, he looks good out there.
Yeah, I think for sure though Gaskin's the pass catching back of the group, which leads to more touches and everything. It just I think some people just are having their expectations tampered.
Yeah, which were probably too high in the first place, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Next thing, Teddy and Drew. We need to talk about Teddy and Drew, and I feel like we talk about Teddy and Drew a lot on the show, but it is one of the main pieces of news in the NFL right now. It's reported that the starting quarterback is coming later this week. I think it's going to come tomorrow. A lot of people are insinuating that Teddy Bridgewater has won the job. I think that's wild. I especially after what Drew Lock did in that first preseason game, and then he came out and he was okay. I mean, Teddy probably played better in that second game, but the thing is we don't really know what Drew Lock is, and just you're kind of settling for mediocrity, in my opinion, if you start Teddy Bridgewater, which maybe they feel that their team is good enough to settle for mediocrity at quarterback and still make the playoffs. But I think the difference is Bridgewater can lead you to a wild card spot, and Drew Lock can lead you to a playoff win, I think, if he hits a ceiling, right?
Yeah, for sure. If Lock hits a ceiling, it's a playoff win. But I'm not even sure if last year was arguably Bridgewater's best year in the league. Panthers obviously not good. I would say arguably Broncos team better, especially on defensive side. But I mean, the only reason he had 3,000-yard total receivers is because McCaffrey was gone, I'd say. And I mean, I don't expect Teddy to carry them to the wild card even. I mean,
that's I still am holding out hope that Fangio is going to make the right decision, which is start Lock until he loses the job. And if he loses the job, that's what you got Bridgewater for. There's no, if you sit Drew Lock down, you're not pulling Teddy for him. And
in my opinion, if you passed on Fields, you have to start Lock because you thought you possibly had a guy of the future. That's why they were hesitant to trade Lock for Stafford in reports, because they think he is the guy of the future. Why not give him the shot, especially when they do kind of have an easy schedule to start?
Drew Lock will set the world on fire if he starts the first 3 weeks. I mean, I don't get it. I'm definitely tuned into this more than any other quarterback battle, I think, because
it's the competitive quarterback battle.
Yeah, which leads us into our next point, which is that Jameis Winston went out and he won the job tonight, in my opinion. So if you're watching this right now, the game is still on. The score is 23-6. Jaguars, I just put out a breakdown on our YouTube, which I'll plug later during the plug section that you can see down there. However, I may have overstated what the Jaguars can be. Jameis Winston, though, looked like a franchise quarterback. He was making good decisions. He was making outstanding throws. Randy, is this a done deal? Can we officially say it?
I can't. It should be. It should be a done deal. On the field, I think it's been proven. But it's just one of those, until it's done, I have to see it just because I can see Sean Payton being so high on his ego that he think he can have a gadget playbook only, a different style than every other team, and win games. And now he'd be coming into a season where people already have a 4-game sample size of that gadget playbook, where it was mildly effective, but definitely not efficient.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Taysom was decent as fantasy quarterback, but we all know you could be decent in fantasy and be terrible in real life, really. AKA Mitch Trubisky being decent enough in fantasy. So, yeah, and Daniel Jones now. I think it's easy, simple. Everyone should want Jameis, including the Saints.
Yeah. If they want to win games, I think they're starting Jameis. That. I get what you're saying. I fully understand. Sean Payton's probably going to make the wrong decision.
My prediction with them being 8-9 was with Jameis as a starter. If it is Taysom as a starter for 18 games, it would then drop to a top 10 pick easy.
Yeah. Yeah, I hear you there. All right. Next thing, we need to go through some of the injuries because there have been quite a few now, and there are some good reports. There are some kind of concerning things. We'll start with the game that's happening right now. Travis Etienne went down, questionable to return. It didn't look too bad. He was on the sideline, looked like an ankle injury. I think they're just being cautious with him and not putting him back in the game. But something probably to monitor as we get through the next week of practice. I think the Jaguars play again on Saturday, so we'll see. We'll see what happens. With that, the other thing that happened tonight was Adam Troutman got carted off. Randy, have you seen any updates on that, or is it just?
I have not, but I have seen a couple players already in practice and preseason games be carted off, and it not be like season ending or ultra serious. It's just I think they're being overly cautious. I didn't even see the play because we were drafting. I didn't notice what happened. So obviously after we're done here, I'm going to try and find it on Twitter, see if it's something obvious and egregious. But otherwise, we'll hopefully learn tomorrow. He's a guy that could have been talked about tonight for sleepers as a late round value. He's not, thankfully, after this injury. And I would assume, unless we get confirmation, you won't be drafting him in your drafts now.
Yeah. I mean, we'll see. Hopefully, it's nothing too serious.
Even if it is, you probably aren't. My point was, even if it is, with him being possibly injured to start the year, you're not going to draft him.
That's fair. More injury news. So Darrell Henderson today left practice. It seems to be a thumb injury, is what they said. I saw no structural damage, so it looks like he won't be out for an extended period of time. But I think we're going to see a little bit of an extended run for Jake Funk and Xavier Jones. Right now, I have it statted out that Jones is the better back. However, Jake Funk looked really, really good this past weekend. So I'm definitely watching that a little more closely because I think that's going to determine the RB2. And now they have prime opportunities to do so. Randy, are you worried about Darrell Henderson's injury?
I think it kind of spells what we knew about Henderson and what I think McVay and the Rams knew about Henderson, because the second Akers went down, they said, we're not bringing anyone else in. We like what we got right now, but we are going to be overly cautious with Henderson because we like him. But you kind of know if he goes down, you're fucked.
Yeah.
Like, then you have to go sign someone, because even if Xavier Jones is decent and Jake Funk is decent, they have to sign someone else still, no matter what.
Right.
So we'll see how it goes. I think from all reports, it's avoiding serious injury. It's a minor thumb injury. He'll probably not play another down in the preseason just to stay healthy. But it is exactly what people were concerned about with Henderson and why he hasn't, as people early predicted, catapulted up draft boards. He's gone up, obviously, but nothing incredible.
Yeah, no, I'm with you there. Some good news. We started with the bad news, but some good news. Rashad Bateman got cleared to run routes as of this morning, so that should be good. Something to monitor. I mean, he's not going full speed, I would assume, considering he just had groin surgery. But it seems as though he'll be getting on the field a little. I would hope at the earlier side of the 6 to 8 week timeline that they gave, I think is what it was. So hopefully we see a little bit more Bateman than we expected to. Even so, Tylan Wallace was still listed at like 6th, which I thought that was going to change.
He's practice squad for sure. There's not even a question at this point.
Yeah, I think that might actually be the outcome, which I think that also depends on Bateman. He might dress the first couple of weeks and then get sent to the practice squad. But it's tough. I mean, a lot of us had Tylan Wallace pretty highly regarded. I think what it probably is the style of receiver he is. He's kind of a small jump ball guy, and that doesn't really work in the NFL. So
no, yeah, it didn't make sense for them to pick him, honestly.
The Ravens do some crazy things. We eventually we'll talk about how the Ravens are getting overhyped as good drafters, but that is not a conversation for tonight. We'll look at the last couple of drafts and determine. And then the last piece of good news. We have talked quite a bit about Jaguars tonight, but DJ Chark was spotted at practice. He's not really running routes because he can't really catch the football with his finger, I don't think. However, or I should say he's not catching passes. I think he's running routes, and he's starting to kind of get back into good shape. I talked through it in the breakdown, but I still believe that DJ Chark is the wide receiver 1 for the Jaguars, and I think they desperately need him on the field, just judging by some of the preseason output that we've seen thus far out of this Jaguars offense.
Yeah.
All right, Randy, it's not. Are you ready to get into our sleepers?
Well, I guess, yeah.
All right, so if you guys missed it, we did go through our A1s last Monday, I believe. And then we did bring you our record predictions last week. So go check that out. So we talked through some of these guys. None of these guys are our A1s. We have talked about them in the past, but of course, our sleepers, we did look at anything after the 10th round. That's kind of the arbitrary cutoff that most people use for sleepers. And then mostly guys that are getting drafted. So we said like 10 to 16, if that's your league, kind of in that range. But we also, Randy's going to kick us off.
I have a couple that aren't because they should be drafted in the 16. That's the only reason why.
Yes. Randy, you're going to go first. So
for clarification for the A1s, in case you didn't listen to that episode, go back and do that, obviously. But that is our version of my guys and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So our the guys we believe in this year.
Yes.
But a guy that I've talked about a lot on here already, and a guy I believe in that is going slightly after the cutoff. Jacoby Myers. Okay, good for you.
You like that transition? That was real nice.
Yeah, look at you.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, like it says here, wide receiver 69, 197 overall,
Nice.
So middle 17th round. He's my wide receiver 41, and if you go back and listen to the A1 episode, you could tell most of my projections and rankings are conservative in nature, more the average, I would say, more in the middle. So I think he could easily be a wide receiver 3 for you. And I think that's insane value for basically undrafted. He works well with either quarterback. He is the top consistent option in New England. We've already seen it in the preseason. The only time that they've actually played Cam, that is, Jacoby Myers was his favorite target. Easy. I will say, clarification purposes, both top tight ends were not playing. So in case that is part of the argument against Jacoby, which I don't know why you would argue against a guy this late in the draft.
Exactly.
They weren't there. I do factor them in the offense. I think he competes for the top amount of targets with those two on the team. And again, basically going undrafted. If I'm somehow wrong about Jacoby Myers, which I'm not, because if you look at week 7 on when he actually was on the field for the Patriots, he's in the top of a ton of different metrics, especially just getting fucking targets. So, and that was, again, the worst version of the Patriots. So they won't be that bad again on offense, because if they are, they'll switch quarterbacks. So either way, Jacoby Myers will be an absolute value in drafts, and he's free.
Yeah. No, I'm with you on Jacoby. I do have him as a wide receiver 1 for the Patriots. However, I don't know how lucrative that is, but considering his price point, it doesn't matter. Like, you take a shot on him late, and you're a fucker.
It's a flex player. I mean, but again, the term sleeper in nowadays is a dead term. With how active, especially, I mean, obviously our Twitter feed may be different than listeners and everything, but there is no sleepers on our feed. Everyone talks about everyone.
That's
even
true.
Players they shouldn't be talked about is talked about.
Yeah. It convinced me to draft Marquez Callaway today, which I probably could have put on this list, to be completely honest. But no, with Jacoby Myers, I mean, he won against man coverage. He won against zone coverage. He had a crazy yards per route run. Like, the dude is just a talented football player. Yeah. And I think we're going to see that play out with this improved offense this year. So I'm on board. All right. My first guy guy that you have heard me talk about just far too much, and you're going to continue to, because I think he is an extreme value in your fantasy football drafts. And that guy is Darnell Mooney. His Fantasy Pros ADP 121 overall and wide receiver 50. I put on here the cut consensus. That's wide receiver 47. However, he is my wide receiver 34. I am very, very high on Darnell Mooney with the assumption that Justin Fields does take over fairly quickly. My projection is week 2. I still believe that. I think Matt Nagy has sort of alluded to that potentially being the case. The stat I have here, and the stat that you're going to constantly hear me talk about, Darnell Mooney had 23 deep targets. He was one of the top deep targeted receivers in the league. The Bears quarterbacks completed 4 of those deep targets. 4. How many drops did Darnell Mooney have? 0. He had 0. So what we're saying is that most of those throws were uncatchable balls. And so you insert a player with just outstanding accuracy, much, much better at throwing a deep ball than really any of the quarterbacks last year, whether it was Foles or Trubisky or whoever the hell that one quarterback was that started one game. Justin Fields is much, much better at throwing deep, and Darnell Mooney has one of the best releases in the NFL. I know that is hard to wrap your head around, and I get it. I understand. Not everyone has watched Darnell Mooney. He's fun. He doesn't always win against man coverage. He is still easily pushed off his spot. But if you get him working against zone or off coverage, he's cooking you. And so you might see him kind of develop his route tree this year. You might see him develop some of his counters to press coverage. And then you're going to see a breakout fantasy performer. I did go on record and say that Darnell Mooney, I had him above T. Higgins. I have since moved off of that, so you don't need to call me crazy here. I mean, you can if you want, but just Darnell Mooney is just a great value in the fact that a lot of the argument is a rookie quarterback can't support 2 fantasy wide receivers. And I hear you on that for sure, but he can support a top 15 receiver and a wide receiver 3, because the 2 great receivers comes down to wide receiver 1s and 2s. I mean, a lot of rookies can support wide receiver 1s and 3s. That's just how it is. So.
Yeah, I love Mooney. I currently, at my projections, have him at his ADP value, but that's also with possibly too high of projections for guys like Goodwin and Bird and Newsome. And also, I for sure would say still too high of projection of Tariq Cohen getting passing work.
Me too.
I had the balls kind of spread out past Allen Robinson. I had Mooney's numbers increasing. I think that's an almost guarantee. So it's just one of those teams where I wasn't willing to give like that extra bump, but he's also a deep target kind of guy as well as working in the middle. So he could easily have an increased touchdown number than where I have it. There's a few guys that are at their ADP for like my rankings or projections or lower that I would take a shot on because they have a path and you would know early. Mooney is one of those guys. You would know early. Even with Dalton, you would know.
Yeah. And last thing on Mooney, and I didn't even mention it, like the dude approached 100 targets last year with Mitch Trubisky and Nick Foles. With Andy Dalton and with Justin Fields, I do expect that they're going to throw the ball a little bit more because they have quarterbacks that can. Andy Dalton, I think Andy Dalton is probably worse than Mitch Trubisky, but Foles did start a bit of last year, and it's close. I mean, Trubisky in that offense was not good. Fields takes over, and I think the Bears are going to pass more. And I know that's counterintuitive, but I think that's just how it's going to go. So,
they're a weird team for me in that regard.
Yeah, no, I hear it. And it's tough because he's a Russian quarterback, and so you are more efficient on the ground, so you could justify it. But alas, who's your next sleeper, Andy?
All right. I'm going with a guy that I didn't pick for A1s, that I gave a special shout out to, so I figured I had to take him here for sleepers, and that's Blake Jarwin. Right now, ADP tight end 26, so not even a top tight end 2, 207 overall, so early 18. So he's not drafted in our up to 16 round projection, but he's my tight end 13 because I do expect him to come back healthy and ready. Again, he's not necessarily hurt right now. He's slightly just getting back to 100%. They're bringing him along very, very slowly. If you are concerned about Dalton Schultz, he's also already banked up. So if that's your concern, I don't know why. I have them both getting good numbers and just Jarwin still being the tight end 13. He was labeled as in question for the breakout tight end last year going into the season. Obviously, injury derailed all that, but him getting hurt led to a no-namer in Schultz, finishing tight end 11 last year with backup quarterbacks. So he's already by the team being brought back very slowly because they know how huge he can be for this offense to elevate it to somehow the next level, to have it yet another consistent option. I think if the draft ADP sticks, which arguably, if you haven't seen him on the field yet and all that, I don't disagree with just letting it go, taking someone else and waiting. If that's the case, he is going to be within the first 4 weeks, and we'll be talking about him as the waiver target for tight end. I think he's going to be a back end tight end 1 this year.
Yeah. It's not out of the question. I think I have him projected that way right now. I did get a little nervous about Schultz because Schultz was getting a lot of run and he was looking really good. And I do get a little concerned that he's on the field a little bit more. But
yeah, like I said, I have it so that they both get work for a reason, because in a sense, I would say that Schultz at least earned some reps. So I expect Schultz to be the Everett of the Higbee-Everett conversation. I actually have him playing more games than Jarwin and still getting clearly outscored. It's not even close for me. The dude tore it up last preseason. He had 1 catch and got hurt. I think Jarwin is going to be a steal. I only have him 15 games, and he's still 10 and 13.
Yeah. No, I hear you. I feel you. I think I gave him more games than that, but
always conservative.
Yeah.
And it's 10 and 13. That's why it's like, holy shit, screaming value.
I know. And I'm along the same lines as you. I do get concerned. I just drafted Michael Gallup because I think he's a good value too. It was probably a good shout for him on this episode. This offense is going to be really good. Where I get concerned is if Zeke really is an improved version, which he is. You can see it when you see the practice videos. He's just thinner. He looks quicker. If that's the case, I worry that the touchdown upside might not be there for all of these guys. And when I say all of them, like I go ahead.
Well, I was gonna say, even if Zeke looks better, which we both agree he will, that leads to an increased success rate for play action passes as well, which a tight end is going to be involved, and he's the tight end 1.
That's true.
So while it won't be everyone, it's still going to be good.
Yeah.
And again, sleepers for me, especially at this point, we're talking guys that they're going to hit early, or something's going to delay it and they're going to hit later, or they're not going to hit at all. And if they're not going to hit at all, and they don't hit early, cut them for the waiver wire guy. Perfectly fine. You don't have the tie to it. I think your next guy is close on that list. I think I might not cut him, unfortunately. Probably my next guy as well. But yeah, it's just one of those things where you want to be able to get high upside early and not be tied to him like you would like a rookie. Like if you drafted like Bateman, if he's going this late, you draft Bateman, you're like, well, I got to hold on to Bateman. He's going to be good down the year. It's like, no, I need to know early and often. I'll get the guy because someone else is going to drop him.
Right. Good example of that. We just had a draft yesterday. Bateman got cut this morning, and I think it's justifiable. We don't have an IR slot in that redraft league, and so there's no real point in holding on to him when you can go get him a couple weeks later, and be dropping someone else and have someone viable on the end of your bench. So yeah, good shout for Blake Jarwin. I have him as a tight end 1, so I'm actually a little higher than you. So, my next guy, Nyheim Hines. I know you're saying, oh, I know about Nyheim Hines. He can't be a sleeper. I know you're saying, I see everyone talking about Nyheim Hines. How is he a sleeper? I hear you. I understand. However, we have just grossly misvalued this player that has legitimate. The reason I say he has legitimate RB1 upside is because he's finished there. He has finished there. He is if you're playing in a PPR league, and these are PPR ADPs right here, 133 overall and RB 45. He's our consensus RB 33, and he is my consensus RB 28. Guys, I don't really understand it. I don't know how we've gotten to this point. I understand that we think that Jonathan Taylor is going to be a workhorse and he's going to be on the field for every play ever. But
that's just not realistic.
It's not, but also we have to understand what kind of role Nyheim Hines has. Even if he loses his 4th and 1 carries, he is still a valuable fantasy football asset because Nyheim Hines can catch passes, and your argument might be Jonathan Taylor can catch passes. No, he can't. Not the way Nyheim Hines can. Now, I will say Jonathan Taylor did show better hands than probably I would have expected out of his rookie year. But again, guys, like Jonathan Taylor can catch dump offs and he can catch passes within 5 yards of the line of scrimmage. Nyheim Hines can freaking run wheel routes. You run Texas routes. Like this dude is going to get open downfield. He's a mismatch for every linebacker that he goes up against. And so letting him fall to RB 45 is just honestly pretty blasphemous to me. I mean, like it.
Let's just be clear here. This is his 4th season. He's finished RB 27, 41, and 15.
Yep.
So even in his worst season, he's better than this. That's what I mean. Like, what are we doing here?
And you can argue, well, Phillip Rivers was throwing to the running backs more than Carson Wentz will. Do we not remember?
Did you watch the Eagles?
Yeah, I was just gonna say, do we not remember what like Boston Scott did with Carson Wentz? Do we not understand what Miles Sanders was when he was on the field with Carson Wentz? I mean, Carson Wentz, he has his fair share of problems, and while he is on track to play week 1 now, allegedly, like I saw him doing weird, like he was running his own routes today for some fucking reason. But I mean, you can argue that Nyheim Hines is the safety blanket. He's gonna be the safety blanket. And there were these arguments last year too. Well, what is Nyheim Hines with Marlon Mack and Jonathan Taylor? And that's the case again. Marlon Mack is there, but that does not matter. Marlon Mack and Jonathan Taylor have a role, and then Nyheim Hines has his own separate role. Yeah. And so when you can get him at this value, that's why he's a sleeper. I know you guys all know about Nyheim Hines. It's just go grab him. You can grab him around early and still be getting a value. So, so that's where I'm at with Nyheim Hines. I'm mad at everyone for letting this happen. So don't make me mad at you. All right, you're up.
All right. I'm actually going the RB taken right after him. A guy that, because of another guy's supposed top 5 potential breakout, has been ruled dead, as you put, for Nyheim Hines. J.D. McKissic. RB 46, so right after Hines, 138 overall, mid-12th round. He's my RB 30. And I feel justified in that claim with this preseason because his role has stayed the exact same. He's the 3rd down back, and he's going to get some role running the ball. That's what he has been for his whole career. That's what he's going to be. If Antonio Gibson goes down, J.D. McKissic will not be an RB1. Just won't happen. It's not his game. He's going to have RB1 potential upside weeks for sure, but I'm not going to act like he's going to be a top 10 running back if someone gets hurt. This is not necessarily a handcuff. This is a flex option every week. He's an RB3 for me for obvious reasons. He was RB17 last year in this role for this offense. I don't understand why we think he won't touch the ball. I have him getting less work no matter what. I think the projections of Antonio Gibson getting an increase in work, being healthy, I don't think he's banged up right now, but just getting into a second year, getting acclimated more to the position, I think he gets more work. I think there's no question there. I have Antonio Gibson ranked very highly. I don't think an RB1, but right on the fringe, and I still have McKissic as RB30. I have him getting a few less rushes than last year, in another game this season, obviously, and 30 less targets. And this is still how it plays out. I think I have a very realistic projection for him. Honestly, after this preseason so far, it could be low. That's it.
I hear you, man. This is one that I would push back on. And the reason I would push back on it is because I'm dumb. And I am
him and Hines, the reason they're so low is because they're in a range where people are looking for full top end handcuffs that if their other guy is done for the entire year, they get the worst version. Yay. That's what people are looking for there. They're looking for high upside handcuffs, not flex options. And that's why those high upside handcuffs, when those running backs ahead of them don't get hurt, they will sit at the bottom of your bench for 17 games. You'll never cut them because you never know. And they'll never go into your flex spot. They'll never be a rotational piece on bye weeks. And if you end up doing it, you'll be pissed about it because he only got 5 carries and 1 catch. Why do we even roster this guy? Fucking take Hines or McKissick and have a valuable piece.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's interesting that I say I would push back on it when I've been the first one out here saying that Antonio Gibson is not going to get the workhorse role that everybody thinks he is. It's just not really a feasible thing. He's never done it. And while yeah, sure, he showed that he can be a really, really good running back, he also showed that in a lot of efficiency. Antonio Gibson was not actually that good last year. Yes, he was good. He was good for fantasy. He was a back-end RB1 in some formats. I understand that was on the back of a really, really high touchdown rate and touchdowns per touch. I don't think that's going to happen again. And then when you factor in that McKissick is still in this offense, and then you factor in, and now this is obviously going off the rails a bit, but then you factor in Curtis Samuel's in the offense. De'Ami Brown is now within the offense. They have a bunch of receivers coming back that they like. And Logan Thomas, Terry McLaurin, they obviously showed that they want to keep Logan Thomas around. They drafted tight ends. They bolstered this offense. And while it should be better, McKissick, I need to the reason I said I'm dumb is I need to fix these. I need to fix my projections on McKissick because he's been really good and he's gotten a lot of third down touches.
You have him for almost 20 less carries, which I have him for about 8 to 10 less carries and a 17-game pace, obviously. And you have him for 40 less targets to my 30 less targets. And you obviously have him for 1 total touchdown, I believe. I have him for 3 total, I think.
Yeah, I'm wrong. I can just
4 total.
Throw that out there. I need to fix.
Well, that's my point. Is I think your projections are close to the ADP.
Yeah,
that's my point. Your projections, in my opinion, are the floor, which isn't terrible to project. I'm not telling you. You said you're updating them. I get it, but I'm not trying to get you to update your projections. I'm saying I think mine are conservative. And probably in the middle or most likely scenario. And it's a screaming value and a piece that you could actually use.
Yeah.
No, I have him ranked ahead of Melvin Gordon, Michael Carter, Damian Harris, Zach Moss, Jamal Williams, Raheem Mostert, Kenny Drake, Nyheim Hines, Leonard Fournette, Trey Sermon.
Wow.
And you get him much later.
Yeah. Yeah, then oh my god, we just watched Melvin Gordon go in I guess it'd be the 9th round or so. That's around there. I mean, that's absurd. Yeah, a good value, good sleeper, great sleeper. And we'll talk about Antonio Gibson probably a little bit more as things wear on. But all right. My last guy and the last guy that we will talk about in this sleeper segment is Cole Beasley. Now, I made a joke. I understand that you've got some COVID issues and you're a little nervous about drafting this guy. However, Cole Beasley is currently going as the 145th overall player and wide receiver 55. Our cut consensus is wide receiver 44, and he is my wide receiver 32. the reason he's that high is because he has that upside. And the reason he has that upside is because he resides in a pass-heavy attack. And when I say a pass-heavy attack, I mean like they are one of the top 3 teams in pass attempts, and I don't foresee that changing this year because they added more weapons. And so you've got a guy who had a super, super low average depth of target, yet still a high yards per route run metric. And what those two things combined to indicate is that Cole Beasley was very, very efficient when he was on the field. Your argument, but you just said they added weapons. Yeah, for sure. But Cole Beasley is the slot receiver for this team. Emmanuel Sanders is going to play on the outside. And of course, he will rotate in the slot, but that's going to be when they have 4 receivers on the field, when Gabe Davis is out there. There are just a lot of things that push his ADP down that probably aren't super justified. Last year, he finished as a top 30 wide receiver. And if you expect that Josh Allen's going to regress, I would push back on that. I don't think he will. I think we haven't even seen the final form of Josh Allen, and so you could be seeing Cole Beasley inside the top 24. I don't have it ranked that way, and I wouldn't, project that highly. But I think Cole Beasley, if you're playing in like half PPR leagues or standard leagues, then no, don't draft Cole Beasley. But when you look at his target share and kind of what kind of targets he gets, he's that safety blanket, and he's gonna get the freaking ball. And so I should have scooped him again in this second draft in back-to-back nights, and I chose against it just to diversify a little bit. But I mean, I can't argue against many of the receivers around his ADP going ahead of him. So. Yeah, you disagree on this one, I know, right?
But do I? Is the that's the thing for me here, is because looking at our projections, we have the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
But he's my wide receiver 47.
Mm-hmm.
So I think I just
you're higher on other guys.
I like
right?
Other people more. Apparently.
Yeah.
Honestly, and you might be on points per game too, which might have him slightly higher than mine or whatever. I don't really care. I'm just saying, I have him 0.4 points above Jarvis Landry.
That's correct.
I have him a little above Bateman, above Marquise Brown, above Marvin Jones, above Russell Gage, above Mooney.
Yeah, I have him significantly ahead of all of those guys, except
what I mean? Yeah,
he's only a little bit ahead of me.
but that's what I'm saying. Like, I don't disrespect his talent or his role in the offense. I think his upside may be limited by the health of Emmanuel Sanders and possible continued production for Gabe Davis. That's my only concern on the wide receiver 3 upside, but there's definitely going to be at least wide receiver 3 weeks from Cole Beasley. There's no question on my end.
Yeah, I mean, the thing with Cole Beasley, like, he's getting the targets. He's absolutely getting the targets, unless you think that Dawson Knox or Jacob Hollister take a massive step forward in that offense.
And I don't. I see it more as I think Beasley is like, he's like Derek Carr's Renfro for Allen. Like, he's the go-to third down guy, and in high-scoring games, high-volume games, I think that's where I would consider Beasley in the flex or in DFS for that purpose, with the potential upside with touchdowns as well. So,
yeah,
definitely a sleeper. And again, you'll see it early. I mean, they play, I believe, the Dolphins early, or somebody good.
Steelers week 1.
Week 1, and I think they play like the Titans or something, and Dolphins are out there too. You'll find out early and often those should be higher scoring games or really competitive games. You'll find out if he's worth a roster spot.
Yeah, and the argument against Beasley, last thing before we kind of end the show, we'll be done a little bit early today. The last thing with Beasley, though, is that the argument can be, well, he doesn't have the same upside as some of the guys that go around him. And I can hear you. Like, I just drafted Bryan Edwards in place of where I would have drafted Cole Beasley. So I hear you on that. But
high upside.
But the thing is like in PPR leagues, is his upside really all that capped? I don't think it is. Like the perception that a slot receiver can't be this high upside kind of guy, I think is a little faulty here as we a little flawed as we start to think about late guys.
I know, but I think the argument where you're Beasley, Paris Campbell, Jacoby Myers, Brian Edwards, Traquan Smith, Marquez Callaway. These are all guys going about the same space and time. I think the argument against Beasley in that scenario is those guys have a shot to be the one. Whereas Beasley has a shot to be a go-to guy, but he's still going to be the two to ditch.
No matter what.
There's no question. But doesn't get the top target, doesn't get the top defense too. So it's hit or miss. I think he's the safer bet by far from all those guys, except Jacoby Myers. But he's very, and again, he is safe. He's a guy that will be on teams this year, at least for a week, to fill in roles, and you're going to be happy with the result. Keep him around, and end up cutting him stupidly for a flash in the pan 1 week, or for Mike Boone, or shit like that. And you'll be like, shit. Well, no one picked him up, so I'll get him again.
It's true. I mean, it's not a sexy name for sure. And
no, but we relied on one of our leagues that we won last year together. We put him in the flex half the time, it felt like, and it was easily. It was any time that we didn't know for sure, we put in Beasley. Not even a question.
Yeah, and it paid off. We won.
Yep,
because we're great. No, I mean, I always tell people I am a perennial third place finisher and sometimes fourth when I play you in the third place game. So everyone knows that by now. But all right, guys, that'll do it for our episode outside of the plugs, which I do want to make sure you guys know that we are running a listener league again. We haven't had a ton of entries into that. So if you guys want to go to our Twitter at the Cut FFB for the entry requirements and stuff, the tweet is pinned right now. So we've gotten a few. I think it might be intimidating because last year we ran a 14 team league and I posted that, and I probably prematurely did that. It might end up being a 12 team league, which is more in everyone's breadbasket. That's kind of what people like playing in. And so that might be the case. We're going to play it by a year, but make sure you guys get those entries in. I believe they're due this Sunday. And so go there at the Cut FFB. That is on Twitter. Reminder that we also have a YouTube channel that I'm going to start posting some videos on. I did a Jaguars breakdown that I alluded to earlier in the episode. I posted it in Jaguars Reddit, and so I got real scared when I did that, but I haven't gotten yelled at yet, so I must have said good things, and then if they tuned into the podcast, I said bad things. So,
or if they watch the game, they know.
Yeah, that's true. But just go to YouTube, search the Cut FFB, and we will be the first 5 to 20 videos that pop up. Any other plugs? TheCutFFB.com. We've got articles coming out. Shout out to Adam for posting a college football preview. That was a really great article. Randy?
Coach Approach Wednesday. Our show Thursday on Spotify. That's pretty much it. I don't think any.
And Apple.
And Apple.
Don't hate on Apple.
Just
although I hate Apple now. Yeah, shout out to all you Apple podcast listeners. I'm going through the same struggle that you are. I don't know what's happening with that app, but I need to get on my podcast Connect and yell at them somehow, find if there's a chat, because they ruined everything. They ruined everything. Everything does not work, and so I'm thinking about the switch to Spotify as well. But that's a major decision, so I gotta think about it.
It's like you have to shift the same amount of money to a different site.
Yeah, it's pretty dumb, but the Coach Approach will have on Kevin at DuBois_22. This week he is the guest, which will be really fun. We'll start to promote that a little bit tomorrow. We will have new shows very, very soon. We've got test shows scheduled for this week. And so, I think it's going to be really good. We're very excited for the content that we're going to pump out this season. and stay tuned. Like I said, bookmark thecutffb.com. We're going to have weekly rankings that post there. It's going to be a good time. We're going to help you guys win some fantasy leagues. I know we say we're the best mediocre fantasy advice, but we do our fair share we care about helping you guys. That's the main thing. So,
Sure.
All right. Anything else, Randy, before we bounce?
Nope. Let's go.
All righty. Well, we will be back on Thursday on the podcast, but we are live every Monday at 10:30. For Randy Hall, I am Christian Williams. We will talk to you guys later this week. Peace.